Well, everybody back in, say, last time, say,
Welcome to this Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. I'm Amanda Pyburn, a member of this fellowship. You are welcome here no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you believe. You are welcome here to join us as we proclaim worth in all of our spiritual journeys. You are welcome to join us in community as we learn, live, and love together. All are welcome as we worship that which gives us each meaning and value. This morning's sermon has been graciously shared with us by the Reverend Dr. Gregg of the UU Congregation of Frederick, Maryland, who first presented it on Labor Day of 2019. His title is Alienated Labor, BS Jobs, and the Dream of a 15-Hour Work Week. We all work in some way, whether we enjoy it or not. In these days of pandemic, those of us fortunate enough to still have a paycheck are just plain grateful on this Labor Day weekend. But Reverend Gregg encourages us to examine our life's work, and why we do it. How might we envision work of the future? Thank you for joining.
Our different paths come together in this holy place, graced by the history of our free religious heritage. Let us be mindful of the forces deep within which call us to become more than we are. May this hour bring rest and renewal, comfort and challenge. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but that we are connected in mystery and in wonder to each other, to this community, and to the universe.
Hi, this is Amy, and I'm back with you today with more stories from Pete the Cat. These stories are brought to you courtesy of HarperCollins Publishing, which is allowing us to use these stories online. So this book, it takes me a minute to get the screen share up. It's called Pete the Cat and His Magic Sunglasses. So Pete the cat did not feel happy today. Pete had never, ever, ever been grumpy before. But today, Pete had the blue cat blues. And to make matters worse, here came Grumpy Toad. And Grumpy Toad was never happy. He always wore a frown. But Grumpy Toad was not grumpy today. He said, "These cool blue magic sunglasses make the blues go away. They help you see things in a whole new way." So Pete put on the cool blue magic sunglasses and he looked all around and said, "Right on. The birds are singing, the sky is bright, the sun is shining. I'm feeling all right." And Pete thanked Grumpy Toad for the cool blue sunglasses. He went on his way and soon he saw Squirrel. And Squirrel did not look happy. And you know that squirrels always look happy. So Pete said, "What's wrong, Squirrel?" Squirrel said, "I am so mad. Nothing is going my way. I only found one acorn today." Pete said, "Hey, try these cool blue magic sunglasses. They help you see things in a whole new way." So Squirrel put on the cool blue magic sunglasses and looked all around. "Awesome," he said. "The birds are singing, the sky is bright, the sun is shining. I'm feeling all right." Pete said goodbye to Squirrel and continued on his way. And soon he saw his friend Turtle, and poor Turtle. Turtle did not look happy. And Pete said, "What is wrong, Turtle?" Turtle said, "I am frustrated. Nothing is going my way. I'm all upside down today," which I can tell you a lot of us feel upside down today. Pete said, "Here, try these cool blue magic sunglasses. They help you see things in a whole new way." So Turtle put them on and looked all around. "Far out," he said. "The birds are singing, the sky is bright, the sun is shining. I'm feeling all right." And Pete kept going until he saw Alligator. And the alligator didn't look happy, although, I don't know, do alligators look happy sometimes? But Pete said, "What's wrong, Alligator?" And Alligator said, "I am so sad. Nothing is going my way. No one wants to play with me today." And Pete said, "Try these cool blue magic sunglasses. They help you see things in a whole new way." So Alligator put them on and looked all around. And said, "Rockin'. The birds are singing, the sky is bright, the sun is shining. I'm feeling all right." So Pete kept on rolling along and feeling all right when suddenly he fell back and the cool blue magic sunglasses went crack. Oh no, Pete didn't know what to do without those sunglasses. Maybe he would be all kind of grumpy again. Just then, Pete looked up at the tree. Wise old owl said, "Pete, you don't need magic sunglasses to see things in a new way. Just remember to look for the good in every day." Pete looked around without his sunglasses. "Too cool," he said. "The birds are singing, the sky is bright, the sun is shining, and we're all feeling all right." So that's Pete the cat in his magic sunglasses. Pete likes to talk. Pete is usually very, very happy, but sometimes he's sad. And sometimes you just have to look at what's going on in a new way to make you happy. And Pete the cat always makes me happy. So I will see you again another day.
Beautiful, thank you. Among anthropologists, there's a classic story about a Western missionary meeting an indigenous inhabitant of an island quite a bit up off the east coast of Australia. It was a bright, sunny day, and the missionary happened upon a man just relaxing on the beach. So he walked up to him and said, "Look at you. You're just wasting your life lying around like that." It's a good way to, meet people, influence what strangers like to hear. And the man looked up, sat up a little bit, and said, "Why? What do you think I should be doing?" And the missionary said, "Well, I don't know, looking around, there are plenty of coconut trees. They're all around here. Why not dry some of those coconut kernels and extract the oil and sell them?" And the man said, "Well, why would I want to do that?" Missionary said, "Well, you can make lots of money, and with that money you make, you could get a drying machine. You could dry the kernels faster and make even more money." The man said, "Okay, and why would I want to do that?" The missionary said, "Well, you'd be rich. You could buy land and plant more trees, expand operations. At that point, you wouldn't even have to do the physical labor anymore. You could hire a bunch of other people to do it for you." "Okay, and why would I want to do that?" The missionary said, "Well, eventually, with all that coconut oil and land and machines and employees and all that money, you could retire a very rich man. Then you wouldn't have to do anything. You could just lie around on the beach all day." This time, the man didn't bother to reply. He just lay back on the sand and enjoyed that glorious sunny day, and the missionary continued on his way. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should spend all day, every day, 365 days out of the year lying on the beach, but this parable does challenge us to question, what is work for? And why do we spend our days in the various ways that we do? As the writer Annie Dillard said, because the ways we spend our days, that is the way we spend our lives. Do you actually enjoy manufacturing coconut oil? Whatever manufacturing coconut oil is for you, right? Or are you only working for the weekends, for your chance to lay on the beach, whatever laying on the beach is for you? Insert that there. Now, historically, and Nicole spoke about this earlier with her story to the children, it wasn't always the case that people even had a chance to work for the weekends. On farms and later in factories, many people found themselves spending sometimes almost all of their waking hours laboring. Sometimes up to 16 hours a day. That's still the case in some parts of the world, of course. But in the early 19th century and continuing really for over 100 years, working hours in America gradually and pretty steadily were decreasing, culminating in the early 20th century with the achievement of the new legal standard of 40 hours a week as full-time employment. That's something we really take for granted, many of us do today, and that was very much not always the case. This achievement resulted in one of the labor movement's most famous slogans, "From the people who brought you the weekend." Yeah. But the story doesn't end there, at least it doesn't have to. Economists used to extrapolate based on that century-long, steady decrease of what was considered full-time labor in the U.S., based on the successes of the labor movement, the rise in automation. They speculated routinely that citizens of technologically advanced nations would, by the end of the 20th century, so almost 20 years ago, people would work no more than 15 hours a week. That was what John Maynard Keynes, people like that were routinely predicting. In retrospect, the opposite has happened for many of us. Technology has connected us to work almost constantly. But this shift is not to say that automation hasn't made a difference. Over the course of the 20th century, the number of workers employed as domestic servants in industry and in the farm sector, that has collapsed dramatically because of automation. At the same time, professional, managerial, clerical, sales, and service workers, that has tripled. in the 20th century, growing from 1/4 to 3/4 of total employment. Rather than allowing a massive reduction of working hours to free the world's population, or even just this nation's population, to pursue their own projects and pleasures, visions, and ideas, we've seen this ballooning out of not even so much the service sector as the administrative sector. And I invite you to consider if this widespread creation of new types of administrative jobs is it at least in some ways related to our opening story of that puritanical missionary who felt compelled to try to persuade a stranger lying on the beach that he should instead become a corporate titan? And then one day hopefully enjoy that beach that he was already enjoying in retirement? Assuming, of course, he didn't die in the meantime from a heart attack and stress from running and being an entrepreneur and starting a coconut business. Some of you may know H.L. Lincoln's famous definition of Puritanism, the haunting fear that someone somewhere may be happy. And that's part of the point of our opening story, that you don't have to delay happiness until some future date. And the reason I chose this topic for today is that tomorrow is Labor Day. It's a federal holiday that is a whole lot more than a 3-day weekend, though that's in some ways regrettably become the way some people think of it, marking the end of vacation season. Labor Day was created to celebrate the labor movement's role in securing labor rights. And some of what I often try to do on Labor Day is to ask myself the question, what can the labor movement, what would it want to teach us today from the successes of the past? I'm also aware that today, as Bruce mentioned, is my first day back to officially laboring after a 3-month sabbatical. I had some labor here and there. It's a separate conversation about the air conditioning, among other things. But here's the other thing. Other than 2 trips, my life was not wildly different from sabbatical. I had less meetings. I was welcome. But it was more that the time away allowed me to do many of the things I would normally do, read, spend time with people, exercise, without those activities having to be so tightly linked to reading to produce a sermon or meeting with people to the end of growing this congregation or keeping it going. I'm grateful in general that there's a high alignment between what I enjoy doing and what I get paid to do. I rarely feel like I'm working for the weekend. Now, I do often feel like I'm working on the weekend. That's a vocational hazard. But I'm actually having a good time most of the time. I know, however, that is not the case for everyone. Many workers experience what Marx called alienated labor. They don't feel like they don't love their job. They feel alienated from what they do, and they're only doing it for the money. The experience of alienated labor makes those statistics concerning that we heard earlier about the job shift that happened over the course of the 20th century. I invite you to think about the beginning, that we had this huge collapse in jobs of domestic servants, in industry and in the farm sector, and this huge increase from 1/4 of the jobs to 3/4 of the jobs in these new kind of service and especially administrative jobs. I think about, like, my wife's an English professor, I think about how the university has been transformed with all this influx of administrative jobs, and are they always really needed? They're not. Separate conversation. Well, I'm not saying that all those new types of jobs are all unnecessary. I'm inviting us to consider if we as a collective people put too much emphasis on forcing people to work 40 hours or more to have anything like a living wage, and how that affects us. For people who don't love their job, it's worth considering if we wouldn't be better off as a society if we worked toward that too often forgotten vision of the labor movement, of moving from that achievement, which was a real achievement of a 40-hour work week, to a 35-hour work week, to a 30, to a 25, even what the economists were saying, a 15 or 20-hour work week, freeing people to pursue their own projects, pleasures, visions, and ideas. This is not to say that anyone would be restricted to part-time work. I routinely work more than 40 hours a week, but I love my job, and that's a huge, critical difference. To say a little more about how people feel about their jobs, it turns out that since the 1970s, surveys have regularly revealed that 74 to 80% of workers say that if they won the lottery or some kind of similar fortune, they would actually want to keep working, at least in some form, maybe less, but they'd want to keep working. Indeed, many people who actually won multi-million-dollar lotteries have either not quit their job or expressed regret that they quit their job. You know, psychologists tell us that we need meaning in our lives. We need to feel like we have purpose. And work helps structure our lives and give us meaning. But notice that only 74 to 80% of workers say they would continue working. And part of the reason, there's a certain percentage of the population that doesn't feel like their work is worthwhile. On that point, one of the most interesting contemporary commentators on our working lives is the anthropology professor and activist David Gregg. He teaches at the London School of Economics. Because he got in trouble at Yale, he was just about to get tenure, was doing a little too much labor activism, and didn't get tenure. Fortunately, he's really brilliant and got hired by the London School of Economics. Not a bad gig. First became aware of him through his doorstop of the book, Debt, the First 5,000 Years. It's actually surprisingly interesting, but not the main thing I want to talk about today. Graeber is also known for helping plan the Occupy Wall Street protests. He was part of that original kind of 20 so people who were meeting, and he's actually the one that coined the slogan, "We are the 99%." But more recently, he made headlines with a brief article he published online, titled, "On the Phenomenon of Bullshit Jobs." For Dr. Graeber, some jobs may be tedious or crappy, shall we say, but he distinguishes those from actually BS jobs that he feels like really don't need to exist and are arguably not a great use of 40 hours a week of people's time. And maybe he's on to something. The essay went viral almost immediately. Within weeks, it had been translated into at least a dozen languages. The original page received more than 1 million hits. Inspired by the piece, an anonymous person placed several hundred posters with 4 quotes on top of ads in London Underground cars. I'll share just those 4 quotes with you. The first was, "Huge swaths of people spend their days performing tasks they secretly believe do not need to be performed." Think about the movie Office Space, TBS reports, right? TBS reports, yeah. Second one was, "It's as if someone were out there making up pointless jobs for the sake of keeping us all working." The third, "The moral, spiritual damage that comes from this situation is profound. It is a scar across our collective soul, yet virtually no one talks about it." The fourth and final one was, "How can one even begin to speak of dignity in labor when one secretly feels that one's job shouldn't exist, yet need to keep doing it because you still got to pay the bills, right?" Along those lines, the comedian Bill Hicks tells the story of a supervisor castigating an employee for not working. The worker says, truthfully, "There's actually nothing really worth doing right now." To which the supervisor says, "Well, you're supposed to at least pretend like you're working." To which the worker said, "I've got a better idea. Why don't you pretend I'm working? You get paid more than I do." I should hasten to add that, again, by no means am I trying to make anyone feel guilty about what you do or don't do at work. If you love what you do for work, I have no interest in convincing you otherwise. My point is much deeper, again, related to that opening parable in which this puritanical missionary is implying that you should only give yourself permission to rest and relax and do what you enjoy if you've worked enough to earn it. And even with the rise of automation, of robots, of artificial intelligence, you've heard me say, it's not the immigrants that are coming for your jobs, right? It's the robots. There may always be some level of work that has to be done, even with all of that. But if you're only doing 15 to 20 hours of alienated labor, you'd be much more likely to return home, not exhausted and too tired to do anything but like stress eat and binge watch Netflix and go to bed to get up and do it all over again, but actually return home, even having done some alienated labor, with enough energy to do ventures that you enjoy, whatever that is for you. Working toward a society in which we only have 35 or 30 hours or even 15 to 20 hours of alienated labor as full-time employment that you can actually live well on may seem like an unrealistic goal. There's that saying, I'm going to say more about this in a sermon next month, there's that saying that and I think this is really true in a time of climate change, that it's easier for many of us to imagine the end of the world than any sort of ending of capitalism. This is a real failure of imagination. There's more to say about that. It may seem like an unrealistic goal, but Labor Day is a reminder that at one time, the 40-hour work week was considered an unrealistic goal. So if you're grateful for the weekend, think a labor organizer. If you want to dream of how work could be better for the future, meet an organizer, labor organizer, become a labor organizer. And some of you have heard me say before, again, change is coming. Automation is coming. Our invitation is to collectively create a society in which there is both more dignity in labor and more free time for individuals to do whatever they feel called to do. For now, I'll move toward my conclusion with the final paragraph of Dr. Graeber's book on BS jobs. You can certainly read it yourself if you like. He says, most of us like to talk about freedom in the abstract, even claim that it's the most important thing. Freedom's the most important thing to fight for, to die for. But he says we don't necessarily always think a lot about what being free or practicing freedom might actually mean. The main point of this book is to start us thinking about and arguing about what a genuinely free society might actually look like. In that spirit, in a few moments, we'll be invited to sing Solidarity Forever. It's the white insert in your order of service. It's perhaps the labor movement's most famous anthem, but I want to just invite us, before we sing it, just to think a little bit about how this deeply echoes and intersects with our UU tradition. The original lyrics to the song Solidarity Forever were written in 1915, and they were set to the tune of John Brown's Body. That's a marching song that was written decades earlier by Union soldiers during the Civil War about the radical abolitionist John Brown. So they took this song that was associated with freeing enslaved people and used it for freeing what are sometimes called wage slaves, right? People that are only working for a wage. And some of you may recall as well that when we sing a song to the tune of John Brown's Body, the Secret Six, who helped fund John Brown's raid in 1859 on Harper's Ferry, just 20 minutes from here, 5 of those Secret Six were Unitarians, and 2 of those 5 were Unitarian ministers. Among those 5 Unitarians was Samuel Howe, the husband of another of our Unitarian ancestors, Julia Ward Howe, who awoke in the middle of the night after visiting Civil War camps and hospitals and was inspired to write her own set of lyrics to John Brown's Body. And later, these new lyrics were written for Solidarity Forever. She wrote lyrics to John Brown's Body that became the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Right? It's all the same tune. When the Civil War began, it was far from clear in the North whether that fight was only to preserve the Union or also to end enslavement. And Julia's Battle Hymn of the Republic was written in 1861, more than a year before Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, and it was part of what helped catalyze popular support for the Civil War as an opportunity to end human enslavement in this country once and for all. So as we prepare to sing this labor anthem, I invite you to remember these historic echoes in this tune, John Brown's Body, and the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And note as well that when we get to verse 4, it's about the women of the Union. So if you identify as female, you're invited to sing that verse. Those of us who identify as male, hang back. If you're somewhere in between, surprise me. As we sing, open the imagination of your mind and the compassion of your heart to what might become possible when we join together in solidarity in ever-widening circles of inclusion of who we care about. Let's rise and bow your spirit.
Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the Union makes us strong. When the Union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the Union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving mid the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
Every job from the heart is ultimately of equal value. The nurse injects the syringe, the writer slides the pen, the farmer plows the dirt, the comedian draws the laughter. Monetary income is the deceiver of a man's true worth.